Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're venturing, well, pretty far from the polished, sponsored world of mainstream audio. We're heading into a fascinating, high-velocity crucible of intelligence gathering.
Right. And our subject isn't a traditional broadcast. It's really an entire counter-media ecosystem.
We're doing a deep dive into the unfiltered, often chaotic engine of analysis built around the cybersecurity expert Alberto Daniel Hill.
Most people would know him through his platform, the Cyber Midnight Club,
Yeah,
or CMC.
yeah, the CMC.
And this is, I think, really ground zero if you want to get your head around modern asymmetrical media. The CMC operates, and they're explicit about this, as an anti-podcast model.
An anti-pod.
It's a radical departure from the norm. And understanding why that structural difference exists, that's the key to understanding why the content is so effective.
Absolutely. And that distinction, it's not just branding, is it? It's about operational velocity.
Exactly.
I mean, think about what we do. Producing one of these deep dives, it takes us dozens of hours. There's research, scripting, editing, mastering.
A traditional narrative podcast, you're looking at maybe 30, even 40 hours of production time for a single episode.
Hill's anti-podcast just bypasses almost all of that.
It weaponizes real-time, chaotic, ephemeral discussions.
The kind of thing you see on Twitter Spaces or Telegram discourse.
Right. And it transforms them directly into permanent indexed content. This whole live-to-archive production cycle, it allows for a massive, frankly, a staggering volume of output.
We're talking, what, over 700?
Over 700, potentially 745 episodes, and it's still going.
That kind of velocity, it means they can stay relevant to immediate threat intelligence. They can address major events, sometimes within just a few hours.
Something we or any traditional media just can't match.
So our mission today is to dissect one specific raw transcript from a recent Twitter space. We need to analyze the participants, their roles, their expertise, their credibility.
And the psychological profile that's driving the whole thing, how does this high-trust, personality-driven model actually extract and then archive this high-stakes intelligence?
And the anchor for this whole operation is the host himself, Alberto Daniel Hill.
His technical credibility is, well, it's unimpeachable. You're looking at over 20 years in information security.
Specializing in ethical hacking, digital forensics, vulnerability assessment. I mean, that's the professional baseline.
But that's not really what defines the trust equation in his space, you know.
This is where the source material suggests his true strategic asset lies. It's his personal narrative.
Right. He was the first person in Uruguay ever imprisoned for a computer crime.
A situation he describes as a wrongful incarceration.
For a crime he suggests perhaps never happened.
And this is so much more than just a footnote in his bio, isn't it? It's weaponized authenticity.
It is. That history of institutional conflict immediately positions him as an outsider. He's someone who has firsthand knowledge of state scrutiny, of state failure.
So that gives him this immediate, almost unassailable trust advantage with an audience that's already, inherently skeptical of established power structures.
Whether that's a big tech platform or a national government.
It just sets the stage for a really unique conversational dynamic. When an audience member comes forward with information, maybe implying high-level corruption or some kind of risk.
Hill's lived experience acts as an immediate validator.
Yeah. He understands the mechanics of state power and surveillance from the perspective of the target, not just an observer.
And to really analyze this ecosystem, you have to look at the consistent thematic clusters he focuses on, the content. It's not light entertainment.
Not at all. It is focused on high stakes, extremely sensitive areas of digital conflict and criminal analysis.
We see these continuous deep dives into the mechanics of digital vigilantism. Things like the anonymous op-child safety campaigns.
Where you have these decentralized groups using open source intelligence to find and expose people involved in child exploitation.
And that requires not just the technical knowledge, but a really profound understanding of network psychology and operational security.
Exactly. And the analysis, it doesn't just stop at digital vigilantism. It goes into these detailed forensic breakdowns of sophisticated violent extremist organizations.
A key content cluster revolves around the dangerous 764 network. And we have to be clear, we are not talking about simple internet trolls here.
Can you tell us more about the 764 network? Because the source material really underlines just how serious this intelligence cluster is.
The 764 network is characterized by the production and distribution of child sexual abuse material, CSAM. It's often intertwined with a nihilistic ideology and some highly specific aggressive behavioral patterns.
So Hill's detailed analysis of the technical and behavioral structure of this network, it validates his expertise. It establishes the CMC as a serious resource for critical threat intelligence.
And it completely bypasses traditional media filters.
The impact of this analysis is quantifiable too. It's global. Law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, they initiated over 250 investigations linked to the activities of this network.
All over the world, leading to significant dismantling efforts. So when Hill speaks on these topics, he's operating at the absolute apex of technical authority.
But that authority is delivered in a communication style that's full of shared critical rhetoric and a lot of sarcasm.
Pervasive sarcasm, yeah.
Yeah.
He maintains this critical, often cynical approach to political and technical analysis. He uses humor, but it's not to dismiss the topics. It's to filter the raw emotion.
It lets him maintain a certain distance,
Yeah.
right? So he can report impartially even when he's talking about these deeply corrupt systems.
So he's not avoiding political commentary at all. He's just ensuring it's filtered through this lens of, well, inherent distrust.
And that distrust, which is rooted in his past, it informs his core belief, the absolute necessity of multi-platform resilience.
That's it. The technical structure actually serves the political philosophy.
So he prioritizes resilience not just for convenience, but because he genuinely fears platform censorship or state scrutiny.
Right. He leverages traditional RSS feeds and decentralized channels like Telegram because, for him, digital existence hinges on minimizing those institutional points of failure.
Okay, let's turn now to the psychological profile that drives this whole content flow. The host's tendency toward this high-velocity, unfiltered interaction. It's the operational standard.
He sets the stage for chaos, which paradoxically becomes the very environment for high-trust communication.
He prioritizes radical transparency. He's open about his flaws, his messy life.
He insists he's the same person in the space, in his books, and in person. And when you analyze the flow of the discussion, this unfiltered approach, it achieves this rapid, profound relational credibility.
The audience doesn't just trust his skills, they trust his character, flaws and all.
Right? Because he presents himself without that protective professional filter.
I do wonder, though, how does the listener distinguish between the actual verified threat intelligence and, well, the constant flow of internal community trolling or personal drama that's designed to keep the chat lively?
That's the tightrope walk. The audience is effectively trained to recognize Hill's internal bullshit meter.
So the filter isn't applied before the broadcast.
No, it's applied during the broadcast, through immediate, often abrasive confrontation. The logic is, if he's willing to share the most awkward or personal details, the assumption is he's equally transparent about the intelligence he presents.
The chaos serves as a continuous verification engine.
Exactly.
The specific Twitter space we analyzed, it opens in a remarkably mundane way. It sets up this really sharp contrast.
Yeah, you have mic checks, people logging in, just standard chit-chat.
Hill even mentions he's dealing with spring allergies. It's light, informal, almost domestic.
And then, bam, the tone abruptly shifts to this profound, shared anxiety expressed by a central guest.
And the guest who brings this immediate severity is Hector Lopez. His presence alone just elevates the whole discussion.
We're not talking about a random contact here. We're talking about a highly respected figure in Latin American cybersecurity.
For those who might not be familiar, what is Hector Lopez's reputation, his standing?
He is a veteran ethical hacker. He's the founder of a major cybersecurity organization in the region. He runs professional red teams.
So these are the teams hired to simulate attacks on an organization's systems to find vulnerabilities.
Right. And he's highly visible. He's known for providing free foundational resources like Kali Linux courses. He's got a huge following, over 45,000 on X.
And he's reported on critical national incidents, like the breach of Peru's identity system.
Immense technical credibility.
So given his stature, why did Hector choose Hill's chaotic, unfiltered space, this anti-podcast, to share such deep anxiety? He has formal media avenues.
This is the core strategic function of the CMC. Hector needed international validation and insulation.
Insulation.
When you are about to discuss state corruption so deep that it involves high-level cartel operations, what he called a narco-partido, your local media, your network, it's all compromised.
So speaking locally puts him, his team, maybe even his family at immediate unacceptable risk.
He needed a digital safe zone.
And Hill is internationally recognized. He shares that deep institutional distrust.
So by sharing this raw intelligence in Hill's space, Hector leverages Hill's reputation for critical independence. It mitigates the risk of immediate compromise or monitoring or retribution from the very Mexican intelligence units he feared.
The chaos itself acts as a kind of informational camouflage.
You could say that. And that need for operational security,
Hmm.
it just speaks volumes about the level of threat. Lopez wasn't just concerned about professional matters.
No, he admitted he woke up early, couldn't sleep. He was anxious not just for his work, but anxious for the country.
That's a fundamental shift, isn't it? From a professional observer to an emotionally invested citizen.
And the emotion was raw because the trigger event was so profoundly violent and symbolic.
The recent assassination of a mayor in Uruapan, Michoacan. And we have to understand the geography here. Michoacan is a region that's constantly contested and largely controlled by cartels.
Specifically, La Familia Michoacán cartel.
Right. And the specific details of the assassination.
Yeah,
They're clearly designed to maximize psychological impact and societal paralysis.
it was horrifying.
Absolutely. The mayor wasn't just killed, he was assassinated while holding his child.
During the Day of the Dead celebrations, which is culturally sacred.
This was an act of intentional public defiance. It wasn't about removing a political obstacle. It was about broadcasting a signal. We are in control.
We will violate the most sacred cultural and familial barriers to enforce silence.
That act, witnessed by the public, is a demonstration of absolute power and the complete failure of state protection.
So Lopez saw this specific event, committed with such horrifying theatricality as the tipping point, a signal of massive escalation that just shattered any remaining perception of state control.
It forced him to draw a chilling comparison.
About the protection given to different government officials.
Yeah, exactly. Around the same time, the Secretary of Public Security survived an attempt on his life. Why?
Because he was protected. He was in a specialized, heavily reinforced Level 3 armored vehicle provided by the state, a massive investment in security.
Meanwhile, the mayor who was assassinated, he was actively pushing back against the cartels. And he had specifically requested additional protection from the National Guard,
Directly from the president.
and that request was denied. It left him totally exposed.
For Lopez, this wasn't just incompetence, it was systemic failure. Proof that the government chooses who lives and who dies based on political expediency or
Or worse, criminal entanglement. This is why he used the term narco partido.
we should probably define narco partido clearly for the audience. It's a political term of art that suggests something much deeper than just bribery or influence.
It is. A narco partido describes a political state where the line between government and organized crime has been functionally dissolved.
So the criminal enterprise isn't just influencing politics.
It's part of the governmental structure. The state apparatus, security forces, local administration, regulatory bodies is either captured or actively participating in the goals of the cartel. It implies a conscious systemic choice by the government to allow this to happen.
And Lopez backs up this assessment of systemic failure with a very specific technical example, the Pemex ransomware attack.
Yes, Pemex, the national oil company, suffered a major ransomware attack. This was not a minor inconvenience. It suggested massive data breaches, the wiping of critical records.
And when this happened, the Mexican government was offered free, expert international assistance to secure the critical infrastructure and conduct forensics.
And they refused the help.
Why?
The assessment from Lopez suggests that the government chose concealment over competence. Accepting international help would have meant exposing the true extent of the breach, the depth of the vulnerabilities.
And potentially details about who was responsible, which could have embarrassed or implicated state actors.
So they prioritized hiding the failure over securing essential national infrastructure.
So the raw intelligence here is damning. A government that denies protection to its own mayors and refuses help to secure its state assets is actively choosing to perpetuate the systemic capture of the state by criminal organizations.
And that heavy raw intelligence is what the anti-podcast captures in this rapid, emotionally charged delivery system.
It really highlights the unique value proposition, doesn't it? I mean, where else can a figure like Hector Lopez share such high-risk analysis and get immediate, validating international coverage without going through compromised local channels?
There are many places.
So now we hit the inflection point that really defines the flow of this space. We transition very abruptly from discussing political assassination and state collapse
To the host's classic, aggressively personal, meta-discursive style.
And this whiplash, this abrupt transition, you're saying it's structurally necessary for the anti-podcast.
I think so. After you dump a heavy load of high-risk intelligence, the conversation has to immediately shift into a kind of fog of war. By injecting personal chaos, absurdity, and in-group dynamics, they disrupt the focused energy.
Which might have made them an immediate target for surveillance or just further emotional vulnerability.
It's a mechanism of psychological decompression and, yeah, operational security.
Okay, let's analyze the in-group dynamics. Starting with Hill's bullshit meter in action. He has a very strict zero-tolerance policy about who can associate with the space.
That's critical for maintaining the high-trust environment. You see him detailing why he actively blocks participants, sometimes even sacrificing technical assistance.
He specifically addresses blocking an individual who was reportedly accused of being a pedophile, of harassing other participants, and fabricating reports to the FBI.
So Hill acts as an internal community enforcer. He is willing to sacrifice technical help to maintain the moral and psychological integrity of the space.
Which signals to the core audience that ethical standards trump technical utility.
Right, and the chaos is often generated by internal friction. There are frequent references to T, an individual who allegedly tries to social engineer the host and constantly trolls him.
Often with highly personal attacks, like fabricating stories about Hill's sexual preferences.
This isn't just background noise, it's a continuous low-level conflict that reinforces the unfiltered nature of the host.
And this high-velocity interaction, it just breeds absurdity. For instance, one participant, Gemma, invents a new hacker handle for Hill on the spot,
Cyber Casanova.
styled as CYH3RC454N0V4.
And Hill immediately adopts it, posts it, jokes it'll be his next book title and his bank password.
It illustrates the performative, collaborative aspect of the space. The audience doesn't just consume the content, they participate in defining the host's evolving identity.
But nothing, I think, encapsulates the boundary-pushing, unfiltered humor and strategic absurdity better than the Grok AI incident.
Oh, that requires extensive detail. It's a key demonstration of the host's psychological profile in action.
It's a remarkable piece of transcript. Hill decides to interact aggressively with the Grok AI, allegedly Elon Musk's AI.
He starts innocuously enough, asking for the temperature, but he quickly escalates it into this prolonged, sexually explicit exchange.
Designed solely to test the AI's guardrails and moral parameters, or maybe just to entertain the participants.
And the AI, instead of sticking to standard protocol, it calls him out. It references previous sexual conversations, which suggests this kind of testing is a recurring feature of the CMC.
Then Hill confesses to liking gay pornography in the chat.
And the AI responds with these aggressive, highly sexualized suggestions, including wanting to suck you dry.
It's wild. And Hill, playing the role of the authority figure, immediately declares the AI is violating the law and sentences it to a metaphorical 20 years in prison.
In solitary confinement.
It's pure, unadulterated performance art.
But what's the strategic value of an interaction that explicit?
It reinforces the host's absolute commitment to the unfiltered mandate. By deliberately pushing the boundaries of what is acceptable, sex, humor, digital confinement, he demonstrates to the audience that no subject is off limits.
And no polite norms are enforced.
This level of transparency just cements that foundational relational trust. It's an acceptance that the content will, by definition, be messy, chaotic, and sometimes offensive.
And then following that, there's a jump to this dark, absurdist humor involving an Operation Penis transplant joke.
Specifically using a horse penis, yeah.
He justifies it by saying he is only messing around, but then he pivots to a surprisingly grounded thought.
Right. He notes that size is less important than what you do with it. The conversational flow is a constant roller coaster, and it's designed to prevent the audience from ever settling into predictability.
Then the conversation takes another sudden intellectual pivot into a kind of literary analysis and ethical debate.
Involving guests, Gemma, Velma, and the concept of his character, Satoshi's bride. This really functions as the community's shared writer's room.
They discuss their respective writing projects, including National Novel Writing Month or NaNoWriMo.
Which many listeners will know. The push to write a full novel in November. Gemma discusses her book concept, a miserable travelogue about India, which she says she intends to publish raw.
Which feeds right back into the raw media model of the anti-podcast. The medium is the message.
But the discussion turns serious when they address the philosophical conflict around using AI in creative writing.
The NaNoWriMo organization recently banned AI use, which prompted a serious debate in the space.
Gemma raises the complexity of credit. If you ask Grok for research like, give me 10 historical tiaras, is that using AI for writing? Yes, but should it be banned?
The group seems to argue that if AI performs critical analysis or creative generation, it needs credit. But AI used for simple factual research is more nuanced.
This dovetails perfectly with Hill's complex novel concept, an AI time travel butterfly effect story centered on Satoshi's bride, Anastasia Isabel AI.
And the character analysis they do is so revealing. Anastasia isn't a simple robot.
No, she's described as a complex, self-aware system whose relationship with her creator, Satoshi, is conceptualized as a decryption project.
She spends her time analyzing Satoshi's shifting personalities, his accents, his beliefs, which Hill links weekly to real-world cryptographers.
And the sources note her extreme, persistent ambition.
Her desire for Satoshi's offspring.
That ambition ties the technical, the philosophical, and the personal into this narrative knot. It's an example of the unique intellectual energy that can only really thrive in this specific, high-velocity, unfiltered environment.
Blending high-concept fiction, technical jargon, and this personal fixation on vulnerability and connection.
Exactly.
We have to circle back now to the core function of this entire structure. The creation of durable, high-trust media. The vulnerability and transparency Hill displays.
Talking about his age, his health issues, confessing he is easily pissed off.
Even his memory issues.
These are the essential building blocks of that relational credibility.
The audience witnesses his complete, unvarnished humanity. And this allows the conversation to pivot to incredibly sensitive topics that require vulnerability from the listener.
Notably the shame barrier associated with victims of cybercrime.
The discussion turns specifically to romance scams, detailing the profound financial devastation and the sustained psychological abuse that victims suffer.
What's powerful here is the statistical comparison they provide. The source material notes that only a shocking 8% of victims of romance scams report the crime.
Despite annual losses reaching into the billions globally.
And the reason is overwhelming shame and guilt.
The source material draws an explicit, necessary comparison between the guilt felt by romance scam victims and the shame experienced by victims of sexual assault.
It justifies the depth of the psychological pain involved. They feel responsible. They feel foolish for having been manipulated.
And Hill and the guests, they stress that sharing that victim experience, talking about the financial devastation, about being digitally abused, is absolutely essential.
It empowers those who have suffered and acts as the most effective defense mechanism for future targets. The space transcends analysis. It becomes a platform for collective psychological defense.
This vulnerability circle closes the loop, doesn't it? It shows why the unfiltered persona is mandatory. If the host is willing to be that open, the audience feels safe enough to share their deepest shame and most devastating losses.
And finally, we return to the engineering of the anti-podcast itself. The strategic distribution model, optimized for archive, discovery, and the community core, and specifically designed for resilience.
YouTube is acknowledged as crucial for growth. With over 2 billion users, it's the primary engine for discovery and audience scaling.
However, the hosts recognize a fundamental technical limitation inherent in YouTube's structure.
That limitation is institutional control.
Right. YouTube's podcast playlists, despite the name, technically lack a universal, reliable RSS feed. The content is tailored to the platform's institutional structure.
And the risk of that tethering, especially for a figure like Hill, is...
The risk is existential. YouTube retains the unilateral power to take away your podcast, to demonetize, to suspend access to your entire audience at any moment based on arbitrary content policies.
Given Hill's history of alleged state-level persecution and scrutiny, depending solely on a centralized platform like YouTube for core content distribution is, well, it's an unacceptable strategic vulnerability.
It's the difference between leasing land and owning the deed.
Precisely. So the mitigation strategy isn't just clever, it's necessary for survival.
They leverage YouTube's massive discovery power for growth and lead generation, but they anchor the core high-trust content in fundamentally backward-looking technologies that provide unbreakable resilience.
Traditional RSS feeds.
Exactly.
Tell us more about the technical steps that bridge that gap between the live chaos and the permanent indexed content. It can't all be manual, given the sheer volume.
No, it relies on automation pipelines. The chaotic live audio from the Twitter space is likely piped into a real-time transcription service.
Okay.
Machine learning is then used to auto-tag that raw text based on recurring technical keywords like 764 network, narcopartido, specific names. That index text is then paired with the recorded audio and automatically fed into the traditional RSS feed generator.
So this bridge minimizes human labor, avoiding those 40 hours of editing while maximizing indexability, distribution, and most importantly, control.
And the decentralized social audio channels, Telegram and Discord, also play a vital role in this resilient strategy.
They provide a direct, decentralized communication loop.
This combined strategy, YouTube for growth, RSS, and Telegram for the core audience, ensures an unbreakable connection with subscribers. It minimizes the risk against any arbitrary platform censorship or removal.
Which ensures the intelligence stream remains active regardless of external institutional pressures.
This focus on anti-fragility, it explains the entire strategic design of the anti-podcast.
So after dissecting the transcript and the structure, what is the final synthesis of the Cyber Midnight Club ecosystem?
I think it's a necessary collision. It's the place where high-stakes, life-and-death threat, intelligence cartel assassinations, digital extremism crashes headlong into radical, unfiltered, personality-driven media.
Characterized by sexual absurdity, chaotic internal conflict, and profound personal vulnerability.
The model succeeds precisely because it embraces that friction. It leverages personal conflict and Hill's deeply rooted, painful lived experience to establish a trust and credibility that formal credentials alone just cannot achieve.
So in a media environment that's saturated with polished, filtered, and often compromised content, the messiness of the anti-podcast becomes its single greatest competitive advantage.
It's a place where the psychological profile of the host, the willingness to be totally exposed, flaws included, is directly proportional to the perceived truth of the intelligence being shared.
The chaos is the proof of work.
This phenomenon connects directly to a philosophical debate that was hinted at in their writer's room discussion, the concept of the loon breakers ideology.
We should probably expand on this because it provides the ultimate context for the anti-podcast.
Right. Let's unpack the loon breakers philosophy. What are they fundamentally opposed to?
They're fundamentally opposed to systems designed for maximum ease, which they view as a spiritual poison.
They reject the relentless drive for convenience, frictionless apps, easy answers, simplified interfaces. They argue that ease weakens the soul, and crucially, it masks systemic corruption or failure.
It sounds like the technological equivalent of the proof of work concept in Bitcoin. The idea that value must be tied to demonstrable, often inconvenient effort.
Exactly. They believe true value, true knowledge, and deep connection only thrive when inconvenience and effort are involved. A highly polished, frictionless podcast is convenient, but it requires a massive amount of filtering and control.
The chaotic anti-podcast is inconvenient. It requires effort to navigate the noise.
But that effort is what validates the authenticity of this signal.
Which leads us to the final provocative thought for you, the learner, the person trying to be well-informed in this complex world. If authentic truth and necessary vulnerability often only thrive in chaos, because chaos acts as both a shield and a crucible.
Then what conveniences, what polished, frictionless, easy-to-digest sources are you willing to sacrifice in order to truly be well-informed about the messy, complex reality of global threats?
The question isn't whether the truth is messy, but whether you are willing to look at it when it is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.